Welcome back to the Zoom at-home interview series. Andrew Kappas here with you. A very special guest on this edition. It is 2017 Tribe Manager and World Series champion, Mr. Andy Barkett. Andy, good to see you. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me, Andrew. I just had to send a text to my kids because they're getting ready to barrel in the door and they get loud. So I just let them know that I was on a Zoom call. But no, it's good to see you, man. It brings back memories seeing the Indianapolis Indians logo and seeing your face. And so a lot of good memories from that 2017 season. It's a pleasure to be on your show, and thanks for having me.
Well, I was hoping you wouldn't recognize me with the facial hair, but I guess the disguise didn't quite work out. But before we talk 2017, I know a lot of folks. You were such a fan favorite when you were here in Indianapolis. A lot of folks have been curious what you've been up to since you left, and you've been a little bit busy. And maybe the most notable that I know I know Howard enjoyed following it, was that 2018 World Series championship that you got as an assistant hitting coach with the Red Sox.
Yes, it was. It has been a busy couple years since I left Indianapolis. Obviously, it was a great season in 2017, and we'll catch up on that in a second. But since then, I was the assistant hitting coach for the Red Sox for a couple of years, and obviously we won the World Series in 2018. It was kind of a storybook type season as far as offensively being, in all aspects, but being the hitting coach and watching the offensive production of those guys and the growth of some of the young players, and it was incredible experience to be a part of. And obviously 2019 wasn't as great of a season, and so at the end of that season I was let go by the Red Sox in a little bit of a rebuilding. And so this year I was staying close to home as a volunteer assistant at the University of Central Florida, and trying to experience some college coaching and kind of dabble in that as I was still under contract with the Red Sox. And so I had the financial flexibility to do so. And it was really a neat experience being in college baseball. I hadn't been involved in it since I played it, and which was 20 some odd years ago or whatever. So I'm losing track of time. But so that's really, and that season obviously ended with the COVID-19 in March. And so, so now we're just kind of in limbo with the rest of the world, trying to figure out what's next.
How different was that? You obviously had a really good college career at NC State, and I wasn't going to say how long ago it was, but you were with the Wolfpack, when you were a player. But since you've been in the pro game for so long, how different was it to kind of go back to the college ranks at UCF?
The most difficult part was really paying attention to the NCAA rules on how much time you can spend with the players. I would be frustrated as players would come and go from the cage, and I'd be like, oh, when are they coming back? And their coaches would say, well, they're not coming back. What do you mean they're not coming back? We got work to do. We got to get better. And they're like, they got to go to class, man. And we only have this much time to work with them. It's not like pro ball where you can just take them to the cage whenever you want. And so getting used to the NCAA rules was a big difference. Baseball players are baseball players, and at the college level, they're anxious to get better. They're anxious to hear about experiences, working with some great hitters like I've been fortunate enough to do, and great players all together. And so, being able to share those experiences with them was really fun to do, and to see them be so open and excited to learn. But so, the college game was fun. It's competition at its finest. Every game is important. In AAA or in the minor leagues, you're really worrying about developing the players and getting them ready to play in Pittsburgh. So the games are almost like practice for them to play in the big leagues, where in college, every game is like the seventh game of the World Series, because they, RPI points and regional bids, it all comes into an equation. So every game is important. So that was really fun. The competition part and really the winning and losing is always something that I've thrived upon. So it was a lot of fun.
Looking back at your time in Indianapolis, we obviously had a chance to meet you in, I believe it was 2016, when you were a coordinator with the Pirates, and then you moved back into a more familiar role as a manager with Indianapolis. But that Tribe team, that was such a fun team. I know it was a huge fan favorite, not just because of the personalities, the different types of personalities that we had on that team, but it really, the clubhouse as a whole kind of almost took on your personality as a laid-back but serious bunch that won a ton of games.
Yeah, that was a heck of a crew. A lot of different personalities. The Tyler Glasnows, the Stephen Braults, the Joey Turlasovich, just to name a few, the reserve Jacob Stallings. Just it was a different group of guys, but to see them really kind of adapt to the message that the coaching staff and I were trying to deliver to them, and to see them take that and run with it and start to just play free and enjoy the game of baseball and enjoy playing together was it was probably, even though I was able to win a championship as a manager in 2014, I would say that 2017 was probably the most gratifying year I've ever had as a manager, just to see that group of guys. And they were just so much fun to be around, how they interacted with my family and connected with my kids and my wife. And it was just a special year all around. And obviously we came up short there at the end against Durham, and being in the big leagues in the American League East and facing Tampa Bay and having to go against Chirinos and Yarborough was giving me flashbacks of that Durham series. And obviously the shortstop as well. A lot of the players from that Durham team were in Tampa Bay, and they kicked our butt that series, and they kicked our butt in Boston last year. So I couldn't shake it.
That it was incredible how that team gelled together, which it can be so hard, as you very well know, at the AA and the AAA level, when you do have a lot of fluctuation. It's not like the lower levels where the team you get on April the 8th, April the 9th is probably more than likely the same one that you get on September the 5th. And it just seemed like you handled that really well, no matter who was going where and what moving parts were involved.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that and noticing that. It was just, we created a culture there, and we had a good core group of leaders on the team, veteran guys like Dan Runsler, Josh Lindblom, and just really high character dudes. And they realized that I was allowing them to be professionals, yet we had a standard of making sure that the game of baseball was going to be played the right way, and the clubhouse was going to be ran with respect for the staff and the players, and that they kind of policed themselves once we kind of they realized how I was wired and how the coaching staff was wired. They took it and ran with it, and it was really a fun group to be around. And I still have relationships with those guys and pull for everybody on that team to this day.
One of my favorite stories, and you had a big part in history, and you also had your footprint, really, your thumbprint, I guess you could say, is all over the current game, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But one of my favorite stories was when we were in Pawtucket. And I know things weren't going very well at the time. That was kind of in the midst, toward the tail end of that poor stretch that the Indians in 2017 really climbed out of to win the IL West title. But in the span of, I think it was less than a week, you sent Dovydas Neverauskas, the first Lithuanian-born player, but also Gift Ngope, the first player born on the entire continent of Africa, to the big leagues. Was that a favorite part of your job, especially with Indianapolis at the AAA level, was getting to tell a guy that he was going to the big leagues?
Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of experience doing that in the Marlins organization, because we sent a bunch of dudes from AA to the big league. So then being a AAA manager, knowing that that's going to be part of your job, just about every day it's a possibility potentially, is definitely a thrill to get that news and that excitement, and knowing that you're going to deliver that news to somebody else is always fun. And then, to be able to promote Never to the big leagues, the first, Lithuanian player, and then to be able to tell Gift that he was going to big leagues was really a special moment, especially within just a couple of days of each other. I remember telling Gift, or telling the whole group, hey, a couple of days ago we just sent the first Lithuanian guy, and now we're sending the first African. So this is a pretty special time. That's something I'll never forget, and being able to talk with Gift during that time and kind of let it all sink in as far as the significance of what was happening. It was really a special time for me, and I know that was obviously something I'll never forget.
Yeah, it was incredible, that 2017 season. You were a huge fan favorite as a manager. Of course, it helps when you win 80 some odd games and go to the playoffs as well. But you look around the game, and your thumbprint really is all over the current game. You mentioned your time with Jacksonville, the Marlins AA team. I'm not sure folks realize when you were in Indianapolis what players that were under your tutelage with Marlins. Granted, they're kind of scattered throughout the big leagues now, but you had an MVP in Christian Yelich, Yeah, JT Realmuto is probably the best catcher in the game right now. So how fun is it to see guys, especially now that they're really into their big league careers, multiple years into it, the Tyler Glasnows, the Austin Meadows as well. How fun is it to see their success, knowing that you played a part in it a few years back?
I think that as coaches, really, you don't make a ton of money. You're not going to make what money that players make, and so the jewel, I guess, of being a coach is that inner gratification of seeing guys like those guys have the success that they've had and continue to, and know that you just played a little tiny part of it, that there was maybe something you said, or maybe a conversation or a drill that you did with that player that potentially put him on a path, or even just, believing in those guys. I think that looking back, we saw, as a coaching staff, we saw superstar ability in all those players you mentioned, and being able to tell them that, because self-doubt is probably the biggest killer to any baseball player, and heck, to any of us in any walk of life. We really have to battle that self-doubt. But baseball beats you up so much as you play that the self-doubt piece is really something that players carry. So to know that we encourage those guys, and we recognize that and we told them that they were going to be future stars, and maybe help them believe it. And then to be able to run into them at the All-Star game last year in Cleveland, and take a picture with Christian and JT, and see Austin Meadows there, and see Brad Hand there, who I also managed in the minor leagues. Just a couple other players as well. It was really neat. It was really fun to, just a moment where you just kind of take it all in and be like, it was really cool to be able to manage these guys and look at what they're doing, and just sit back and smile and be happy for them.
To kind of come full circle here for the last question here for you, Andy. I know a lot of folks, especially folks that kind of regularly sat at Victory Field around the dugout on the Indians' home side, on the third base side, or behind home plate. I know a lot of folks talked about how neat it was, how involved your family was throughout the summer, and you had your kids kind of running around during batting practice and in the clubhouse as well. And it's making me feel old, man. But we were chatting the update. You have a daughter playing soccer at UCF. You have a son now that's really growing up and getting involved in baseball, and another daughter. The last time we saw her, she was real little, and now she's all grown up too, kind of almost into the teenage years. So how's an update on the fatherhood part of life?
Yes, yeah, they are. Jade is my oldest daughter, was out at Victory Field working on her soccer drills, kicking the ball in left field, and we would do all type of drills, shooting and passing, hitting long balls across the outfield. Heck, I remember even some visiting players would, out there early would take, would get into the game, and Glasnow would be kicking the ball around with her and so forth. So she's a freshman at University of Central Florida on a soccer scholarship. Isaiah, who was, running around Victory Field all over the place, is now a 16-year-old, going to be a rising junior. He made the varsity on his baseball team at Oviedo High School, where we live. And then Emma is now 12 and playing volleyball and telling everybody what to do in the house. So the kids are growing up. They have very fond memories of their time in Indianapolis. I believe in all the stops that we made as a family throughout the minor leagues. The experience of the fans and the front office, and of course the radio guys in Indianapolis was probably the best one we've ever had.
Well, I appreciate that, Andy. We loved having you in Indianapolis, and we're thrilled with all the success. Sad that you had to leave us, but thrilled with all the success that you had upon exiting Victory Field. Thank you so much for your time, Andy, and we hope to see you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me on the call, and best of luck to the Indians in the future. It's a first-class organization, and we miss you guys. And who knows, we may see you down the road sometime.